Welcome back to another episode of Paladin Financial Talk. I'm your co-host, Nikki Foley, and I am here with Mr. Matt Bryant and Tony Shore.
Yeah, great to be here with you guys. I'm excited about the show today. We have a very interesting topic.
I am excited about it. So we are going to dive into the timely topic of, and it's kind of fascinating actually, I think, of name, image, and likeness, which relates to the world of college athletes right now. And it is a hot topic, I would say.
It is branding.
I think it's somewhat controversial. And
Yeah,
so just having a chit chat about it today. And
Interesting.
I thought that the two of you might be great at this conversation. So Mr. Matt here, first of all, I don't know if our listeners know, but Matt and I, brother, sister, first show that we're doing together here.
Wow.
So I know. Kind of fun.
You've each done episodes separately, and I enjoy working with both of you, but this is fun having you both together.
First time together.
Yeah, and you both work for Paladin at Paladin, right. So that's awesome.
Well, I was supposed to be the one and only today, well, with you, Tony,
yes.
But I was like, what are we going to talk about? And I thought NIL, and nobody better than Mr. Matt here to join us. I don't know if you know this about Matt, but he was quite the star in high school athletics. He's quite humble over there, so he's not going to brag about himself, but I think he had maybe an all-state title or something like that behind his name somewhere along the way, but didn't go on to play college athletics.
No.
And but he's a big sports fan.
Yeah.
So I thought he would be fun to have here.
But which sports? Wrestling?
No. Small school, so football, basketball, baseball.
Oh wow, all three.
So football was the one though.
Yeah, you got me beat. I was just football.
Well, and I learned today, Tony, that I didn't know that you had played college football as well.
Well, I played in my high school, small school.
Yeah.
And then I went to a community college in my local town for about a year and a half. I was at a community college, and I played there as well, but didn't do so well. I mainly
didn't do so well.
Yeah. Grab some. Or? No, on the team. I was not that level necessarily. Yeah.
I got recruited very casually to play at like junior colleges. And
which sport?
Football. But I was pretty small, and I was like, I've had enough.
I was too small as well. I'm too short. I was short and stocky. So I tried wrestling just really briefly, but didn't like it. My dad was an all-star wrestler.
Okay.
He's very short and very muscular. My dad comes up to about here on me, and he's always been really muscular. So those guys, the short, muscular guys, tend to do really well at wrestling. But football, I did not know that we have that in common.
That's right.
Yeah, I love playing football. I was defense. I was a nose tackle on defense mainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both sides, offense and defense, but it was fun. It's just at a certain point.
I just had a conversation last week actually with somebody that, the topic of college athletes, we're doing a lot with the NIL side of things, of educating young student athletes on the opportunities that are there and the financial aspects. And so lots of conversations that go around this. But one of the things that came up in topic last week was just around there should be an opportunity for these students to have education on just making that transition to be a college athlete and what it's going to look like and how it's going to be different. And you're going to be presented with a lot of things that you could be doing and your friends that are non-athletes. And it's a whole new world when you get there, and you have to make decisions. And that's all before you even bring in this new topic of being able to make money as a college athlete. And
monetizing it.
Yeah. So there was already so many things that you ended up facing.
So many controversies. I mean, the education aspect of being a really top-notch college athlete and getting a degree, there's been controversy around that. Like, do they just pass the, some schools would just, they bring them in because they're good at sports, and then, the rest is always secondary. And that's been controversial, but you bring money into it and then it's all
it's
over
a whole nother ball game. And so I think for these young human beings that there's a lot of pressure on them. So I just thought that this would be a fun current event topic for us to cover along the way here. So first, before we get started, Matt, I love to put you on the spot here. Give us just a fun fact about you and and sports, anything you want to give us. And Tony, I'm going to ask you next. So anything that you want to share with us? Fun fact.
You've already put out there the all-state thing for football. So I'll add that same class included, and this is somebody that most people in Minnesota and Wisconsin would recognize, but same team was Jordy Nelson.
What?
Of Green Bay Packers fame.
You're kidding.
We played against each other for years, and then we were on the same all-state team. We chose different career paths. So he went,
obviously,
he took the glitz and glamour of the NFL. And I went financial services, but
okay, that was a good one, Matt. That was
You're going
really
to compare bank accounts, call them up. Hey.
Yeah. It'd be an interesting one.
Yeah.
And he's back on the farm now.
Back in Kansas. He actually
really,
it came up this weekend when we were down in Kansas visiting family. He is assistant coach on the high school girls basketball team because his sister is head coach.
Really?
And our younger sisters played basketball together.
Yeah.
College,
he was a pretty good player.
He was a good athlete.
Yeah.
There I was.
So when he's coaching with his sister, you're doing financial services shows with yours.
That's right.
Just keep our paths going there.
Wow. That's that's a great point. I never even thought of that. Wow. Parallel paths.
That's right. There we go. Sort of. Huh? So Tony, do you have a fun fact for us? Anything? I'm putting you on the spot.
Nothing compared to Jordy Nelson. I never played with a professional athlete. I do remember once getting hurt in a game where there was a team, I think it was Pipestone or one of the local southwestern Minnesota towns had a center that was really muscular, and he went on to college sports. I don't know if he ever went into the pros. And I don't even remember the name because it was on another team, but he ran me over a few times and I had to leave the game because certain parts of my body were very sore, black and blue all over the next day. So that's all I remember, but I was pretty good on defense. But I will tell the story that the reason most small schools like you, when you were in high school, you played both sides. They had you, if you were a defensive tackle, they'd have you be a blocker or an offensive tackle. Well, they tried that with me, and I was so bad I went the wrong way blocking. I blocked my person into the play a couple of times.
Specialist.
And they're like, "You're so much better at defense. We'll just keep you there." But
thanks for trying.
But it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, what we're going to do today is we're going to go through and just answer a few questions of, first of all, what is name, image, and likeness? If individuals that are listening have not heard that up to this point, giving a little bit of history on how we got to where we're at right now, and then going through the pros and cons. And it's easy to look at it from one side of, say, the ball.
There you go.
One side of it, if you were like the athlete, but there's really a lot of other stakeholders as we look at this. What are the role of the colleges and the university, and where are they at in all of this? What about alums? And our dad is a KU alum, and he's actually had a few stories this summer. We were together talking about about the NIL side of things and how, as an alum, they're even being impacted by it. And so just looking at all the different roles and talking about kind of what this looks like and what's going on around us. All right. Well, with that, let's dive in. So just beginning with, what is the name, image, and likeness, and what does that mean? Matt, do you want to go through that just for us and kind of give something to the listeners so they can latch on to?
All right. So name, image, and likeness, call it NIL. That's what you'll hear in the media or whatnot. So refers to the rights of individuals, particularly college athletes, to profit from their personal brand, including their name, image, and likeness. So traditionally, up until the last few years, there's all these television deals being done, all this money flying around college sports, especially when you talk about football, basketball. Up here, it's hockey too. So all this money was being made, but it was illegal for college student athletes to be paid beyond their scholarship. So money was being made, video games were being made, all this money was flying around, but the college athlete wasn't getting any of it.
Nope, they get none.
The
college got it all.
College got it all, huge TV deals. Now the athletes got, tuition and, paid for and whatnot, scholarships, but it wasn't to the level that was the actual money flying around.
Right.
So then there was a lawsuit and then a court challenge, and that's how we came out with name, image, and likeness. So now college athletes can benefit from their name, image, and likeness, so they can get paid for what they do on the field or the court or whatever. So it's completely changed everything, and it's like the wild, wild west. I mean, there's rules in place, but not cohesive rules, and it seems like every few months or every year there's a new flavor of it where someone's always going to try to find the angle, and it's
moving so fast right now. So we have, on one side of our business, always worked with athletes and helping them. Usually it's as they get into the professional level, and specifically NHL players. And what we have been doing is just working individually with the college athletes and, getting them set up and going through the education on the financial side as they are presented an NHL contract and so forth. When we started that, and really more of the education part, we had, put a presentation together. Like, that presentation has changed so much. Like, you pull it up every 3 months or something like that to look at it or do something with it. And enough is changing that you really have to change, like, details of that, instead of, being able to use the same PowerPoint and go through the same education. It's moving so quickly, and like monthly you're changing things, which seems so crazy.
Yeah, when there's anytime, doesn't matter what sector or whatever you're looking at, there's this much money flying around, hundreds of billions of dollars. People are going to find a way to maximize that, and without rules that are clear across the country, there's always going to be people trying to exploit it and find their angle and make sure they can get the most out of it. So like she was saying, it's just constant evolution.
Yeah. So there are pros to it for the college athletes, because a lot of them were being taken advantage of.
Yeah, there's lots of ways that you can look at it, and just starting with that college athlete. I mean, what a huge opportunity from them on the pro side of things. So Matt mentioned lawsuit, class action lawsuit. That's how we got here. I think it was a video game that they had, a college basketball player had done, been featured in it and gotten nothing from it. And you think about, my gosh, that's not right if you look at it at its face, at face value there. But there's also some drawbacks to all of this. And so let's talk through. So, like, the basics is, yes, what a great thing that these college athletes, I mean, they really don't have an opportunity to work or do anything additional as athletes, because that's where they spend their time, is being an athlete. And so having them have an opportunity to have some income from this, I think that's fantastic at just that basic level.
Yeah. And a lot of these athletes, you're in college for 4 years and you might get a little bit of NIL money. Most of them aren't going pro and in their sport. So they'll get, if they get a scholarship, sure, they get school paid for, but to be able to earn a little bit more, and like, hey, everybody else is profiting off of what I do, why can't I earn something? So for them to be able to make some money, that's a good thing. Ideally, and this is where we come in at Paladin, is trying to convince them to say, hey, like, this is a unique opportunity that's not going to last for more than most likely a few years. Like, don't blow it. Try to maximize it. Like, yeah, you're 19, 20, buying a brand new truck or doing whatever with this money would be the easy thing and the cool thing, but you could set yourself so much further ahead if you just make a few smart financial decisions when you're 20.
Smart investments with that money. And work with financial professionals like yourselves. But one thing I find fascinating that you mentioned, Nikki, is the video game aspect. And that's really what led to this. And I remember when that happened, and some athlete that did go on to be a professional was the top college basketball player, and he's featured on the front of the video games. It's bigger than music and movies. It's way more profitable. It's one of the most profitable forms of entertainment, video games, and especially the sports games. And you see the NCAA logo or the Final Four. EA Sports puts out a video game of college athletes, and on the cover, it makes $1 billion, this game, right? Hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. And on the front is the likeness of a person. And that person had no say. They got not a dime of that $1 billion. And that's what led to that being decided. Now, in some ways, people have pointed there's cons, which you guys are going to go over, and I think it's reasonable that they made that ruling, because if my likeness was on a video game that was making billions, I mean, the Doctor Sure, we all know how popular that my image on a video game would be. We know how well that would sell. I'm being sarcastic, of course, but if it was and it sold millions of copies, I'd want a piece of that.
Yeah. I mean, all they were doing
I would
was
take them to court.
they would take the school name off and the player's name off the back, and same color jersey. You could easily tell who this person
who it
is.
was. Yeah.
And these companies were making tons of money.
Yes.
Schools were making money. These TV deals were making tons of money. And
I like to think about, outside of even that, what a great opportunity to really rise up to the occasion, to now start to negotiate who you are as a professional, and have that opportunity to come to the table and be able to, start that at a much younger age of selling yourself and being kind of in the business realm, an entrepreneur type environment when you're negotiating your name, image, and likeness. And so what a good thing for these young athletes to be exposed to something besides just being a tremendous athlete, but some real skills that will take them into the professional workplace as well.
Right. When they have to negotiate the real contracts.
Yeah.
But
you learn, they should be able to learn, all right, how do these business deals work?
Right.
Essentially, now they have agents and whatnot, but you're negotiating a salary, so to speak, which is something you might be doing for the rest of your life. But the contacts these kids can be able to create in their community, we're not talking about necessarily like the huge schools that are, we're in the middle of the college football playoffs right now, so we know who these schools are. But even here locally, like, you can develop a brand, and whether, even if you're not going pro in the NFL or whatever it may be, you're going to develop enough of an image or a brand here where you can be pretty successful in your local community. And that opportunity didn't really exist to the same degree prior to.
What a great platform for these individuals to kickstart who they are as young adults and professionals, and holding themselves out as community members. I mean, I think all of that is fantastic opportunity. On the flip side, though, you are pulling all the strings, or somebody is holding the strings as you go through this, and you can quickly hop from place to place. Now you don't have to stay somewhere. There's a level of, and this is getting into the portal and some other things that have changed simultaneously, but
these are some of the cons.
Yeah.
And there is a negative downside to all this, and people say this is the monetizing of college athletes is what has ruined the college sports.
Yeah, I mean, you see them on commercials, and they're still student athletes,
right?
So developing your brand, doing all these things, these people giving you money, whether it's the school or a collective, they're going to have expectations of you. At what point do all these expectations, not to mention your athletic obligations, interfere with your academic obligations? And I think that's where some people are seeing is, are we really student athletes anymore? Or is this sort of a semi-professional model of
it's
sports?
Turned it into a more of a pro model. And so what happened to that, breeding ground for athletes, or whatever you want to call it?
And I think that's what we'll see over the next few years, is some unifying rule, and whether it comes from Congress as a lawmaking body or what, but it probably will get to be more standardized, if you will. But yeah, it's created a lot of opportunities, but anytime you have opportunities, there's some downsides.
Yeah. So you brought up a good point, Matt, and I don't know how much our listeners are in tune with this, but these athletes basically have an opportunity to monetize from private companies. There's also something called the collective, and that is where the universities, most of all the NIL is being managed right now with state and colleges and supervision together. And so the colleges have what they call the collectives, and that is where they are recruiting the dollars from the alums and getting money from the community to then pay out the athletes. A third part that is starting this year is all the ad revenue that you started talking about at the very beginning of this conversation. Now that is being given to the universities to be split among their top performing teams. So up here would be hockey, football, men's basketball, women's basketball, whatever it might be, volleyball, depends on what school you're talking about. That ad revenue is now being given to the schools to then pay out the athletes. And it doesn't mean all of the sports are going to get them. It's going to be their top performing the revenue generating sports. So that now brings a whole nother element into all of this of you get to be on the swim team or you get to be on the baseball team, but it doesn't end up being one of the top 5 sports at the school you choose. What does that mean for you? And so there's so many moving parts to this.
Yeah. And I think there's, when you're alluding to like being equitable and, one side of the argument is whoever brings in the most money should profit the most. But then you drill down. And so the different programs within a school, they're not all revenue generating and they're not going to see necessarily any NIL money. Then you also have being within the team. So you're the starting quarterback at Ohio State. You're probably making more than, the third string guard at Ohio State, right?
I would assume. Yeah.
And, that's what pro sports is, right? There's certain positions and players that get paid more because they're deemed as more valuable.
Yeah.
So that comes more from the, I guess, coaching perspective. That's one issue. But then also, if you're a sports fan in general, Ohio State's payroll, quote unquote, is $20 million this year for football.
That's nuts.
My team, University of Kansas, isn't near there. Gophers probably aren't. Like, as a fan that sits back and watches it, you're creating a pro model where your school might not be able to keep up. But going back to the player, like,
yeah, it eliminates parity. That's a big con. And what I don't like, I'll be honest, a personal feeling I have about this, the aspect that I really think is a negative is they allow athletes to move from school to school year to year. So it used to be, if you got a scholarship, you stayed at the same school all 4 years. They could build teams that way. And now with people, last year he played for Alabama, but now, Georgia got him or Ohio State got him,
And, like, before you could transfer, you just had to sit out a year. And so like now you look at some teams and we're not even calling them schools anymore, teams, and they've got this senior that's played for 4 different schools. And
that's crazy.
What does that do for that kid's like education when likelihood of going pro is not there? Like, you've been to 4 different schools. Like, how much are you actually digging in and developing on the academic side versus the athletic side?
Yeah, and it doesn't allow for a smaller college to win the whole thing one year because they just have better people that they got. I mean, it takes away from recruiting when it's more about the money. Like Ohio State can recruit a lot better than the Gophers can, or Michigan can recruit better than the Gophers because maybe they have more money.
Yeah, and now these players transferring are finding better opportunities. So from that perspective, it's like, okay, let's think back to how this all started, and is meant for the student athlete to be able to profit off themselves. And so there's some other things happening that be a benefit for them, but going back to the wild, wild west, like,
and
the rules are minimal.
I think about, just kind of from my background of the people side of things that it takes to manage all of this. I know for a fact that these athletic programs aren't staffed properly right now, and to put somebody on this to respond to it, like, basically what's happening, the little bit I know, is these athletic programs are needing to get the money in as fast as possible from a recruiting perspective so they can get the recruits that they're looking for. And so that takes personnel and people to get that done while they're trying to be a coach. And really, a lot of the head coaches have it on their shoulders to be responsible for the recruiting and so forth. And so all of a sudden you're supposed to be a coach, be a recruiter, and C, a fundraiser as well, or have somebody to be your fundraiser. And so there's a lot of scrambling going on behind the scenes because you don't know what's going on. There's not rules that you're supposed to be playing by, or not really clear ones. And so it takes all these people to make this come to life. And then you're supposed to be performing at the top level simultaneously.
You've started to see some athletic departments or schools, I'm not sure how they're exactly structured, but hire general managers, which was always traditionally a professional sports term.
You never had
You're
GMs.
dealing with the money and the payroll and everything. And you had athletic directors in colleges. Now we're talking, some schools have general managers, which just shows like it's money first. That's where I think one of the cons too is, where do the academics come in? And maybe it's needs to be separated somehow. And like, hey, these are just a minor league for professional hockey or professional football, whatever it may be. But that's an interesting part, is a lot of things we keep talking about for these big time programs. It seems like academics is falling further and further.
And think about it.
That's
from,
a problem.
I just talked about the athletic departments and the coaching staffs and so forth. Think about as many people that are, incoming freshmen that are coming in. That's one role that has been very probably traditional and routine. Well, now you have all these transfers with your athletics happening as well. That is not something that, was accounted for along the way until these last couple of years. And so you have stress on other parts of your academic programs that are, you have to account for that. And there's a financial piece that goes along with all of that. So I feel like you can keep going on and on of pros and cons. One that our dad brought up this summer when we were together is he is KU alum, season ticket holder on football and basketball. And what he has found is, and this is back to the conversation we just had, they're looking for money wherever it can come from. Well, guess what's happening now? The alums, that those dollars are going to pay for recruits, and they're hitting up their alums for that. Well, what about the facilities and all the things that the alum dollars used to go to? Who is going to handle that? And they start reaching deeper into the pockets of season ticket holders, and they, becomes unaffordable because so much is shifted over to paying the athlete versus keeping up the facilities.
From tickets to concessions to parking, all of a sudden it becomes like paying the kind of money you pay to go see a pro event.
Well, and there's a loyalty factor on two different levels. You talked about the transfer portal. Coaches do the same thing. So I'm not saying it's just the players that are transferring frequently, because coaches will pick up and move to a new job in the middle of the season without thinking twice about it.
It's becoming more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
The players especially are moving.
Loyalty is drifting further and further away. And then to Nikki's point, so my father has had season tickets to KU football for 35 years probably, and they've had a lot of terrible years. There's been times where I remember being a kid and he and I were one of maybe 4 people in some of the sections. Like nobody was going to these games. They're so bad, but he always went, always enjoyed it. They finally got good over the last couple of years, and they built a new stadium. And now what they're doing to alums is saying, hey, you need to donate X amount of dollars to even have the option of buying a seat in this section. So who cares that you've had tickets for 35 years and watched some really garbage football? What can you donate? How many tens of thousands of dollars can you donate to be able to sit where you've been sitting for years and years?
That's terrible.
So then it's like, what are we doing here? But it's all about money. That's what, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
Short-term money, I think, is the key too, because you think about these athletes, and you said it earlier, is how much loyalty is being created. And as you have alums leaving, they've gone to 4 different schools, and let's say they go on to be professionals and giving back to their university. Which one are they going to choose? I mean, you're dipping into this long-term game of, and I think that it causes just regular alums to waver a little bit when there's so much, movement along the way. And so very interesting to see, what the short-term gains do for the long-term game here.
Yeah. I mean, there's the one side, the fan side is like, it's kind of tough to watch when you see people moving all over the place. It feels more like the pro model. From our perspective as advisors, though, like I remember when I was 20 years old, and if someone dropped 10 grand or 30 grand in my lap, like opening a Roth IRA probably wasn't top of mind. Like,
no,
what can we do just to help these people realize the impact that you're only 20, so you have so much time on your side, but what else can you do to maximize what you have? Like, you're not going to be a college athlete for more than 4 years, a professional athlete most likely at all, but maybe 3 years if that's the average, I think, if you're lucky. So what can we do to say, like, hey, this is an opportunity that not a lot of people have. Yes, have fun with it, but make sure you invest in yourself for the future, because I don't know. I can see a lot of that money just getting
blown. Yeah.
blown.
And I think about, you also make bad moves and everything is captured on video these days and pictures and whatnot, and just helping them be good human beings along the way. When you're sitting with a lot of cash in your hand, not everybody makes good decies. And so that's
especially in their early 20s. I know in my, when I was 19 or 20,
Thank God
if you'd
social
handed
media
me,
didn't exist.
hand me a check, oh my gosh, I probably would not have made good decisions.
Yeah. We grew up in a household where money was talked about and investing was an important piece. But I still remember, outside of my family unit, two individuals that happened to be present that really made a big difference in just small decisions. It was the person that I hadn't started my 401k on like day one, but I was on day 10. And he said to me, have you got your 401k set up yet? I just haven't got it done. Let's just do it right here, right now. And it takes somebody like that, or just to get it done. And so if we can do anything to be that person, I think that's what we're trying to accomplish with these young athletes. And I think about all of our listeners who probably know a young athlete, of putting this bug in their ear that if money is coming, making sure you're making good decisions. And the other piece, in the person that in my life, was the gifting part of things, is setting up the desire to gift throughout your life and starting that young, and what a big difference that can make along the way in your finances and, giving back.
2 weeks ago, I think I sat down with the daughter of one of our clients, early 20s, and showed her just a simple calculation of, and we've talked about in these podcasts before, but if you invest just the Roth IRA maximum, $7,000 every year for the next 30 years, what do you have versus if you wait even 10 years to start, or if you wait 20
years? It's a huge difference.
Huge. The amount you actually have to set aside and save it's incredible, the difference to wind up with $1 million or $2 million. That hit home with her. It still kind of surprises me when I run the calculation. Like, it shouldn't be that way, but having all that time on your side. And so whether you play college sports or not, like that first job, you need to start saving. Even if it's $50, $100 a check, like, we get it. You don't have a lot of money when you're starting out, but life's a lot easier when you hit your 50s, when you've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah. And if you're putting it into a retirement account starting young, and it never hits your paycheck or your bank account, your checking, you can't use that debit card or phone to pay for it, for something. You can't spend it. You don't notice it. It's not going to hurt you. People say, I don't have the $50. Well, if you never have it, you won't miss it.
Yeah. And she came back and said, I can do more than the 7,000 you're talking about. I can figure out my budget and put X amount extra in. And that makes it huge, especially for people even my age, but we're talking 20 and 25-year-olds. Like, you're going to be responsible for your own retirement. Like, pensions are disappearing already. They're probably going to be gone by the time a 20-year-old turns 60, unless you work for the government. So you better realize that you're responsible for yourself when you get older, and not, I'll always make money, I'll always be able to do this. So
yeah, the $5,000 and the $10,000, I remember how important that was at that age. And these athletes are being gifted the 30,000s on up. And that's right. I guess the point of all of this is, for our listeners, being able to make an impact on these young adults who potentially are in this position where they're making money as athletes. I think all of us probably know a college athlete who is going to be in a situation where most people don't have this platform, and to use it and recognize with gratitude what they have, and to do something with it. And so anyway, it's certainly an interesting topic. It's fun to talk about because there's so many angles and so many paths that you could go down. I could stay here for another hour talking about it.
I mean, we've high level talked about the fan perspective. We've talked about the advisor perspective, the actual athlete perspective, coaches, administrators. Like, it's touching everybody. And then you have agents and everything. It's a lot of money flying around and a lot of new things being created on a monthly basis. And it's
like you said, it's the Wild West out there, but the financial aspect is so important. Again, work with a financial advisor. And I think that's huge. So to wrap up, I want to let our listeners know that they should subscribe to the podcast, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
They can go subscribe on their favorite podcast platform. They can also go to paladinfinancial.com and check it out there. And I want to encourage everyone to leave a review if you're watching this. Leave an honest 5-star
That's right.
review, as Jeff always says, an
That's right.
honest 5-star review. Great show today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, if you have youth in your life and they want to meet with somebody, we do a lot of just education for the purpose of educating. And so call us at 651-842-8406. Let me do that one again, 651-842-8406. Call us and let us talk with the young people in your life. We'd love to be able to support them.
All right. Well, great show today. A fascinating
Yes.
topic. Money in college sports. Wow.
There we
You
go.
tackled the controversial one today. For our listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Paladin Financial Talk with our hosts, Nikki Foley and Matt Bryant.